I am wearing literally the only green shirt that I have just for this video. Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Lindsay Lohan. When I was younger, she was in a number of incredible films, such as The Parent Trap, Herbie Fully Loaded, and Freaky Friday. But it seems like now that she's grown up, her career mainly consists of starring in holiday, Hallmark-esque movies that ultimately fall flat more than they succeed. I mean, there was that Christmas movie where she pretended not to know who her ex was while she was meeting her new boyfriend's family.
Avery and I
are so delighted to be included in your family Christmas.
There was that other Christmas movie where she totally lost all of her memories and then learned the true meaning of capitalism.
I figured I owe you this much for ski lessons. Sorry it's late.
Howard, I can't, that's, wow.
And then there was that third movie that consisted of a bunch of teenage girls dressing up like Santa and singing and prancing around on stage. Oh no, I'm not talking about that one, I'm definitely talking about the remake. So seeing as St. Patrick's Day just passed, and I would definitely know, as an Irish step dancer I just finished dancing at no less than 23 different shows, I wanted to be able to find a nice, relaxing holiday movie that would let me sit back and have fun while resting my poor, aching feet. I considered watching Lord of the Dance, but nah, I've probably seen that at least 100 times already. There was that one Disney Channel movie about that kid who turned into a leprechaun, but I feel it's too nightmare fuel-y.
Being a teen is tough. Being a leprechaun is even tougher.
Besides, that one was also made back in the Stone Age. There has to be a much more recent, fun, Irish movie that I can watch. And that was how I found myself logging onto Netflix and stumbling across the movie, The Irish Wish. Or actually, I think it's just Irish Wish. I don't think there's a "the" in there. And this is a movie about a book editor who is played by Lindsay Lohan, who has desperately fallen in love with one of her clients. But before she can confess her feelings to him, he ends up getting engaged to one of Lindsay's friends, and before she knows it, she is off to Ireland in support of the wedding. And that is where she makes a wish that she herself were to be marrying the man of her dreams, and of course everything goes all downhill from there. Yep, pretty simple, pretty overdone, pretty 13 going on 30 if you ask me. But with that, I guess let's jump right into this mind-numbing movie. But real quick before that, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. I am trying very hard to get to my first 1,000 followers, and I would love for you to join me in that journey. So this movie starts off with Lindsay showing up at a book release party, and yes, I will be calling her Lindsay throughout the duration of this video. I feel like, for some actors, once you get to a certain point in your career, you're no longer pretending to be people, you're just yourself, traveling from dimension to dimension, experiencing these different stories as we kinda go along with you. So Lindsay has definitely gotten to the point where I no longer think of her as anybody but Lindsay, and she is going to be nobody but Lindsay to me. So Lindsay gets out of the cab so that she can go into the party, except, oh no! Her scarf has gotten caught in the door of the cab and it's driving away without her. Oh man, thank goodness this happened right at the beginning of the movie so that we, the audience, can know that Lindsay is a quirky and relatable girl. So the reason why Lindsay is at this party is because, like I said, she is the editor for a very famous and well-known author, Paul Kennedy. Except that despite him having released several books prior to this one, this is the first one that Lindsay has worked on with him. And I gotta say, I really need to know why Paul and his previous editor aren't working together anymore. Is it that Paul is an unbearable creative who is impossible to work with and he misses every single deadline that his editor sets? Or is it because his editor is so incredibly incompetent that they don't even know what a basic Oxford comma is? Or, is it something much more basic, such as somebody just retiring or going on maternity leave? Oh, you never know in this day and age. Anyway, so we obviously infer from the way that Lindsay is like hardcore staring at Paul that she definitely has a massive crush on him. And because Netflix knows that anybody who's watching their shit is also scrolling on Blue Sky at the same time, they make sure to say out loud that she has a crush on him when she gets onto a phone call with her mom.
Actually, I was calling to see if you've had that talk with Paul.
Not yet. I hope you haven't told anyone about my feelings for him.
And the really weird part about this phone call with her mom is that for some reason, even though it is 9 p.m. in New York, it looks like it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Des Moines, Iowa, where Lindsay's mom lives, despite there only being a 1-hour time difference. Paul says that he wants to have a private chat with Lindsay. Lindsay obviously thinks that Paul is about to confess his love to her, when in reality he wants to ask her if she would be willing to partner up on a book that he wants to write. Which, yeah, can be a little bit disappointing. It's not what she was expecting, but honestly, I think that's still a pretty good deal. Except, it looks like one of Lindsay's friends has caught Paul's attention, and before we know it, it is 6 months later and we are flying to Ireland in celebration of their wedding. Okay, real talk, please don't marry somebody who you have known and dated for less than 2 years. And if you can, definitely don't do it until you've lived together with them for at least 6 months. There's so much learning about yourself and each other that you are doing in the beginning stages of a relationship, and honestly, things don't even really start to settle down until at least 2 years in. And if you're gonna want to get married, you're going to want to be certain that the person who you are getting married to is going to be able to support you and handle any situation that life throws your way. If you realize early on that you want to marry this person, you can still wait the 2 years because you're gonna be together forever anyway, so why does it hurt to just chill out for a little while and be certain first? And that makes it so that by the time you do get married, you're certain that you two together can handle any sort of crazy thing that is gonna come your way, such as you wanna be able to know how your partner is going to handle your car breaking down at the side of the highway before you decide to legally bind all of your finances together. It's always better to be safe than sorry when you are legally tying yourself to another person. Ties that are very hard to undo if you later realize that this was a mistake. Anyway, just be safe and take your time. You're gonna have the rest of your life together anyway, so it doesn't really matter how slow you go. Anyway, that's my marriage advice, coming from a guy who's been engaged 3 times already and has not followed through on a single one of them so far. At the airport in Ireland, Lindsay has a little meet cute with a guy where they both think that a bag is their luggage, so they're kind of fighting over it until it finally breaks open and boxer shorts and Axe body spray go flying everywhere. Imagine the bag pops open and bras and panties go flying everywhere and the guy's still like, yeah, sorry, those are mine. There's actually a drag show down at the pub later that I gotta get to. Honestly, that would be a movie that I would want to watch. Because the airline has lost her luggage, Lindsay needs to stay back at the airport and then take a bus to the place that she is staying. And oh, who sits next to her on the bus besides the guy that she just had the meet cute with? I should probably look up this guy's name. I don't remember who it is. I should probably look it up for the integrity of this video. Oh, okay. His name is James, and holy fucking shit. Do you know what I just learned now that I'm looking this shit up on IMDb? The guy who plays Paul Kennedy also played the grown-up version of Mordred in my favorite show, Merlin. Holy shit, I cannot believe that I did not recognize him. I am shook. Anyway, the entire ride to the Kennedy house, James is just talking mad shit about how much he thinks that Paul Kennedy is just a garbage writer who puts out terrible books. And as somebody who is a reader, I genuinely cannot imagine falling in love with somebody who is talking shit about my favorite author like within the first 5 minutes of me meeting them. I just do not get why his books are popular. They are so gross. Like, I understand that some people are, like, into body horror, but, like, why would you be into body horror? It's all just, like, blood and guts and gross and everywhere, and, like, what is even the point to that? Ooh, yeah, baby. Those words are so sweet. It just makes me want to penetrate you. Ooh, oh yeah? Oh yeah. With this sword. Lindsay gets to the Kennedy house and almost immediately breaks an expensive vase because, remember? She's so quirky and relatable. How are you not gonna relate to her if she isn't knocking something over every 5 minutes? How? Everybody decides to go on a picnic, but at the last minute, Lindsay decides that she's not really feeling it and goes on a little walk through the Irish countryside instead. One of the things that I do have to say that I like about this movie is that it is quite obvious that they decided to film on location in Ireland, which was a great decision. It's definitely a lot easier to sit through this absolute dumpster fire of a movie if every few minutes I get to be lulled into a little sleep by the gorgeous views of Ireland. I also think that it was a good choice because had they decided to try and green screen this shit, I'm pretty sure that it would have ended up looking like we were filming on the set of the Teletubbies. While sitting on a stone bench, Lindsay is FaceTiming with her mom and talking about how much she wishes that Paul was marrying her instead of her friend, which, girl, can you not, like, act as though you have a little bit of shame around that? Can you not pretend to feel a little bit bad about the fact that you literally want to steal your best friend's man from her? A random woman shows up and tells Lindsay that if she makes her wish properly, then that means that it will come true. And Lindsay, feeling as though, you know, she's got nothing else to lose, she does it and then proceeds to heckle the woman because nothing mystical magical happened when she made her wish.
I wish I was marrying Paul Kennedy. Well, that didn't work.
Didn't it? And how can you tell?
Because isn't there supposed to be like an earthquake or a lightning bolt or something?
I'm sorry, an earthquake? Is that a Freaky Friday reference? Alright, I'll give him a point for the Freaky Friday reference. So this woman, who we come to learn is Saint Bridget, and is actually like a real saint in Ireland, and a pretty important saint, be that she's up there with Patrick, don't you know? So the interesting thing about this movie is that for some reason, they decide to portray Saint Bridget as kind of like a trickster goddess, almost like Loki in many ways, which, as far as I know about her, she's not. But if you're an actual Irish person and want to, like, prove me wrong because I'm a stupid American, feel free to go down in the comments below and absolutely do that. Anyway, Saint Bridget magics Lindsay back into her bed, where she then proceeds to discover Paul Kennedy naked in her shower and a wedding dress in her luggage that has now magically appeared in her room. Honestly, I really hate this part because I think that it takes way too long for Lindsay to, like, fully realize that her wish has come true. Like, yeah, I know that there's this whole, like, oh, magic is real curveball with it, but it just frustrates me to no end when a character has full context for their situation and is still stumbling around acting as though they have no idea what's going on. Like, being freaked out that Paul is in her bathroom, sure, I can get that. But once you get to the point of seeing your luggage magically appear and also there's a wedding dress that fits you, like, inside of it, like, come on, girl, catch a fucking hint. Or, what would be even more fun would be if we got this situation in reverse. Grandfather, you'll never guess what happened. Last night I made a wish that I was going to be marrying Paul instead of that bitch Emma. And the next thing I know, I wake up in my bed with Paul laying right next to me. And Emma, that cunt, she was gone, as well as her wedding dress. Oh, isn't this wonderful? My dream is coming true. Dang gummit, Jessica Ann, your dreams are not coming true. The only reason why that happened is because last night you came home and got so blackout drunk that you were vomiting everywhere. And Paul just wanted to make sure that you didn't choke on your vomit in your sleep. Oh. As for Emma and her dress, not only did you get blackout drunk, but you set her dress on fire while screaming about how you deserve to marry her husband more than she does. So now she's out buying a new wedding dress, and suffice to say, you are no longer invited to this wedding. Yeesh. Now, go and apologize to your grandmother. I know she's very disappointed in your behavior. Okay, grandfather. I'm sorry for my behavior, grandmother.
Why, it's okay, dearie. I know how people can get when they're in love. But the most important thing for you to remember is that no matter what, a man will not define you, and you'll always be my little pork chop.
Thank you.
Now, don't forget to sacrifice a small child before midnight, or else my soul won't be able to stay bound to this physical plane.
So Lindsay starts off her first day as Paul's fiancé, and of course, it does not go very well. She's too stupid to realize that she should sit next to him at breakfast for some reason. Like I said, playing too hard into this character has no idea what's going on thing. After breakfast, Paul wants to go on a bike ride, but Lindsay is very bad at bike riding, and this leads to Emma and Paul going off on a bike ride instead, and ooh, she's his fiancé from the alternate dimension, whoa. And then later on in the day, Lindsay goes into town, and she learns that she's supposed to actually be wearing this wedding dress that has been in Paul's family for generations and has been passed down from woman to woman to woman. And I have to admit, as far as historical wedding dresses go, this one actually isn't all that bad. I think it looks pretty good. Lindsay sees St. Bridget through the window of the wedding dress shop and runs out into the street like a mad woman, which causes her to trip and fall into James's car, which is wild because had she raced out into the street literally 2 seconds earlier, then she would have Regina Georged herself. There is then a very awkward conversation between Lindsay and James because Lindsay knows who he is, but because this is a new timeline, James has never met her before, and it ends with Paul's mom realizing that James is a photographer and inviting him to work at the wedding because they are down one photographer. Yeah, I haven't mentioned it before, but James's job is that he travels around the world and takes pictures of really rare animals for, I don't know, probably like National Geographic or something like that. He also, like, doesn't have a family or anything. He's a very flat and boring character. Literally, his only personality traits are take photo and drive car. That night, Lindsay beats the shit out of Paul when he comes to bed because she forgot that them being engaged means that they sleep together in the same bed now. Girl, how? If there was a man who I was so desperately in love with that I was completely fine with stealing him away from the altar and also my best friend, you better bet your ass that I would be thinking all day about the fact that we would be sharing a bed later that night. I would be counting down the hours until I was able to put my hands on that man and do many family unfriendly things to his entire body. So because Lindsay beat the absolute beans out of Paul, he decides that he's not going to go on the little photo outing with Lindsay and James, even though the entire outing had literally been for him. He had wanted to take photos for like his Instagram feed or some sort of promo or something like that, so I don't really know why Lindsay would still be going out by herself with James if the entire point was to document their engagement for social media, but like, I don't know, whatever. So Lindsay and James are out on the Irish countryside having literally the stupidest conversation ever. I kid you not. James is simultaneously surprised and impressed to learn that Lindsay's favorite author is James Joyce. Points away from both of you on that one. Points away from James because he knows that Lindsay is a book editor at this point. Why would it be considered impressive that she has read a classical author? I would have expected her to have read a number of classical authors as well as modern day books because that's literally her fucking job. Also, it's not that impressive to name drop James Joyce because he is literally Ireland's most well-known author. She's not out here name dropping like Colin Barrett or anything like that. Points away from Lindsay because no, he's fucking not. James Joyce is not your favorite author. I see this in rom-coms like all of the time, where the girl is supposed to be like unique and have like interesting things about her, and they always make her read. And so when the main guy like asks her what her favorite book is, she always says some dumb ass fucking classic. Like how Bella's favorite book in Twilight is Wuthering Heights. No, it's not. And part of the reason why I feel like we keep on giving these girlies like classical favorites instead of a modern day favorite, which would make way more sense for anybody who reads, is probably because these books are now in the public domain, and thus it is very safe to name drop them as opposed to something that you could technically get copywritten for. But still, you never have these girlies name dropping like good, interesting classics such as Lord of the Rings or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's always just some shallow, dumbass Charlotte Bronte shit. Actually, Charlotte Bronte did write that one about the man who locked his wife in the attic and then tried to marry another girl while his wife was still alive and locked in the attic. So, I mean, I'll give points for that one. But still, my point still stands. You know, I actually kind of miss the days where we really revered the manic pixie dream girl. A girl who actually had her own thoughts and opinions and really did stand out from the crowd. Nowadays, every female main character has to be as flat and basic as possible so that the women in the audience can just project themselves onto her, and to be honest, it is not doing it for me. Where are my Clementines? Where are my Ramonas? Where are my Hollies? Thank God trans women are becoming so much more popular in the media today because they are filling a niche that I am desperate for. James and Lindsay get stuck in a rainstorm coming back from their photo shoot, and because a tree has fallen across the road, this means that James is not able to drive Lindsay home and they have to stay overnight at the local inn. I gotta be honest, I spend so much time on AO3. I was fully expecting to get the one bed trope here, but no, the inn does have 2 separate rooms for them. Although we do get a scene that contains lots of eye contact and lingering touches.
You're a good coach.
You're a good student.
I'm getting married in 2 days.
Right.
Your drinks?
They also dance with Irish step dancers, even though it would be way more common to see Sean-Nas dancers in an Irish pub, but hey, I'm going to give the movie points because they hired actual Irish step dancers instead of fake ones. The next morning, the car won't start, meaning that James and Lindsay have to give it a little push to get it going, which leads Lindsay to being all dirty and wet and late for her rehearsal. And because she's late, it looks like we've had to put Emma in her place to be pretend Paul's bride. But Lindsay is able to jump in at the last minute, but right before she's about to kiss Paul, she actually sees St. Bridget in the stained glass and passes out from that for some reason. But when Lindsay finally comes back, she is moaning James's name in her sleep.
James?
What? Who's James? That'd be me.
Girl, come on, get a hold of yourself. Now at this point in the movie, if I were in Paul's position, I would probably think that my fiance is getting cold feet and cheating on me with the photographer. I mean, she's acting weird, she beats the shit out of me if I even touch her, and now she just spent a night in a cute little inn with a hot photographer. How would they not be sleeping together? I mean, I would if I were her. The entire situation practically spells cucking. But instead they have a nice little rehearsal dinner, which is supposed to highlight Lindsay and Paul's relationship, but of course it goes absolutely terribly because Lindsay just showed up yesterday, meaning that she doesn't know any details about their relationship, such as how they got engaged, and he somehow doesn't know basic things about her, like who her favorite author is. Honestly, this point really pisses me off because as the viewer, we're clearly supposed to be watching this and go, oh my god, how does he not know who her favorite author is? James knows who her favorite author is, which is why they're destined to be together. Except like, she literally just told James yesterday who her favorite author is, and anybody who has a regular attention span and memory would be able to recall that. I would be genuinely concerned if he couldn't remember this basic factoid. But him remembering this one basic factoid does not at all indicate that they should be together. Like yesterday, my roommate brought home these peach Japanese Oreos that he found at the Asian supermarket, and while we were eating them, he told me that while he liked the peach Oreos, he thought that the strawberry Oreos would probably taste better. And just because I can remember that he likes strawberry Oreos more than peach Oreos, definitely does not indicate that we should be together more than him and his girlfriend, who I would assume is not personally aware of his preference for strawberry over peach. After dinner, Lindsay and James have a little fight because James doesn't think that Lindsay should be marrying Paul. He doesn't think that Paul is right for Lindsay, you know, he's low-key being like, oh, you should marry me instead, which is hilarious because that's literally what Lindsay was doing 20 minutes ago in the movie. But obviously, like, a massive plot point throughout this movie is that we're supposed to see Paul and Lindsay finally together, except nothing ever like works, so we're supposed to be like, oh, clearly they're not really meant for each other. But the way that the movie goes about it is kind of really weird. Like, a little bit earlier, we had learned that the way that the Paul-Lindsay engagement went is that apparently Lindsay is the person who proposed to Paul, and Lindsay is playing it off being like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with that because it's feminist, it's modern, there's nothing wrong with a woman proposing to a man, which on the surface is true, but clearly this movie is trying to say otherwise. Everything about her relationship with Paul is supposed to be off or is supposed to be something that wouldn't make her happy. So clearly this movie is indicating that if she were truly happy, then she wouldn't have been the one to propose to Paul because real women get proposed to by real men, not the other way around. In reality, I love women proposing. I love anybody proposing, honestly. To love somebody so much that you can't keep it in and you just need to go to them and say, I want to be with you forever, the rest of our lives. Like, that is just so adorable. I see the appeal of getting proposed to, but I also see the appeal of being the proposer, and I think both is adorable, and I think that everybody should get to experience both because it is a cute and nice thing to do and have done to you. Now, one of the things that I kind of haven't really mentioned so far is that Lindsay really wants to be a writer. Like, that's her life dream, is to publish a book. But she kind of dreams a little bit too hard, to the point that she ends up fully deluding herself about her situation. And honestly, I hate using the term delusional because of the way that the internet uses it nowadays, but honestly, it is the only way to describe Lindsay's, like, character arc journey through this movie. Like I said, Lindsay is Paul's editor, which means that her job is to go through his work and see if there are any grammar or spelling mistakes. And yet, we get to watch her go from,
I still think you should have your name on the cover with him. You practically wrote the book.
No, I didn't.
to,
I wrote that book.
No, you didn't. I wrote that book.
that's right, over the course of this movie, Lindsay fully convinces herself that she wrote Paul's book when she didn't. Now, if we had gotten scenes where we saw Lindsay, like, fully plotting out Paul's book for him, or, like, maybe parts where she had to do, like, massive rewrites of sections of his book, then I can see how she would have convinced herself that this was her book, but she didn't do those things. And even if she had, it still wouldn't be considered her book because it's the author's overall decision what to keep and get rid of. Like, the editor cannot tell you that you have to rewrite a section or you have to replace these words with different words. Like, that's all just suggestions that the author decides whether or not to take. Literally, all that Lindsay did for this man was make sure he was using the correct there, and now she's trying to claim that this is her entire intellectual property. This really pisses me off, because if my editor had tried to claim that they wrote my book, you better bet your ass that I would be suing the absolute shit out of them, which he's super rich, he can definitely do that. Because, surprise, it's actually super illegal for an editor to try and claim that one of their clients' work is actually their book, because even if they did, like, fully rewrite a whole bunch of stuff, like I said, that's not their intellectual property. They have literally no ownership over it whatsoever. They are being hired and paid to rewrite these sections if that's what the author wants. They have no legal claim to it whatsoever. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Lindsay had lost her job over this, because that's how super not okay this move that she's pulling is. And the claim that Lindsay is the one who really wrote Paul's book gets even more ridiculous when we see this scene of her sitting at her laptop in front of her own book that she said that she wants to publish, and we see that she hasn't even written a single fucking word for it. This bitch doesn't even have a title. How can you say that you want to publish your own book when you clearly don't even have, like, the starting point or initial idea for any sort of novel? There are so little ideas going on in that head that you can't even think of a different hairstyle to do since 2003. Sorry, that one might have been a little bit too hard. That one was directed at the actual actor instead of the character that she's playing. Anyway, Lindsay happens to look out the window and sees Paul and Emma together, and while they technically don't do anything, it is very clear from their body language that they are desperately in love. So I guess this makes them the I'll find you in any universe couple, and Lindsay is just the evil villain who is keeping them apart for her own selfish gains. If this were a different movie, I could easily see Lindsay succumbing to a death. Maybe one where she trips and falls out of a window and falls to her doom before everybody has like a big party about it after. So because Lindsay has finally realized that she and Paul are not actually made for each other, she walks down the aisle in her normal plain-ass clothes and tells everyone that she is not going to marry Paul. And this leads to Paul and James getting into like a actual physical altercation that leads to James leaving and saying that he doesn't want to see Lindsay ever again. And she responds by low-key assaulting him by kissing him when he said that he was not interested at all anymore, and thankfully, instead of like reciprocating, he just leaves. Completely distraught, Lindsay drives back out to that place where she had made her wish with St. Bridget and desperately begs her to set everything back to the normal timeline.
But everything has gone horribly wrong.
Has it? Or has it gone exactly as it was supposed to?
No, I don't think that things have been going the way they were supposed to. Something that I haven't really mentioned that's been going on throughout the movie is that St. Bridget has definitely been fucking with things so that things will kind of happen in the way that she wants them to. Like, remember how she just appeared outside of that dress shop so that Lindsay would happen to trace her out into the streets and run into James? She's also been doing this thing where she really fucks with Lindsay's mom and makes it so that she misses her flight and thus will miss her daughter's wedding. St. Bridget is very clearly orchestrating events so that Lindsay is purposefully going to have a bad time. So no, I don't think that things have been going the way they're supposed to. I think they've been going the way that St. Bridget wants them to. Either way, St. Bridget does send Lindsay back to her original timeline where Emma and Paul are getting married, and now somehow her luggage has magically appeared in her bedroom even though she lost it in the original timeline. I personally think that St. Bridget was the person who magicked her luggage away so that she and James could have the little meet cute. And now that that part is over, St. Bridget gave her her luggage back because there's no need to keep it from her anymore. After the wedding, Paul asks Lindsay to be his co-writer for the upcoming book that he's going to work on. But because he is not willing to put her name on the book, she decides not to do it, which honestly, I think that's fair. This movie keeps on trying to make me like feel bad for her and her wanting to get published but like not being recognized for her writing or whatever, when I don't. If she ever does manage to write her own book and like put it out there, she already works in the industry. I cannot think of anybody who would have an easier time getting an agent and finding a publisher and getting their stuff published than somebody who is already actively working for a publishing house. Literally only Nepo babies would have an easier time getting their shit out there into the world than Lindsay would. The movie ends with Lindsay desperately running into the town so that she can find James, and weirdly enough, he says this.
Well, just after you got off that bus, I met this very interesting woman who encouraged me to stick around for a while, to see what might happen.
Oh, so we're insinuating that James also just came out of his own alternative timeline where a woman manipulated him into giving up his dreams for a woman that he just met. Great. Yeah, so this movie did not work for me. Like I said before, for all intents and purposes, Lindsay is the villain here. She tries to steal her best friend's man, she tries to steal her client's intellectual property, and she also doesn't know how to respect her partner's boundaries and autonomy. Why would I want her to win? She has zero redeeming qualities whatsoever. The movie also repeatedly tries to get me to see Paul as a bad guy so that I want Lindsay to get with James, but I can't. Is he a good guy? No, not really, but overall, he's just a guy. That's it. He's not really good or bad one way or another, he's just some dude. James is an incredibly flat character who exists so little that he actually has no friends or family in the world ever at all. He has zero backstory, he only exists to prop up Lindsay's character to make her feel better about herself. This movie fully dives into the fantasy of wanting to be known without actually letting somebody get to know you. James, despite having literally just met Lindsay, magically knows all of the things that she really wants in her soul, but is too scared to say out loud. And that's part of what makes this movie so incredibly eye-rolling. It's impossible. It's a fantasy. It will never happen. If you really want somebody to love you for who you are, you unfortunately have to actually show them who you are. And when it comes to Lindsay, I genuinely don't understand why anybody would fall in love with her. She's incredibly boring, has absolutely no personality, and all she and James does is fight, so why would anybody want to be with her long term? I also don't understand why she's so head over heels in love with Paul so much that she wants to steal him away from her bestie. They have no chemistry together. Like, if you were down that bad for a man, you would expect there to be some sort of connection there, but there's not. I can barely even believe that they're co-workers because of how awkward they are around each other all the time. It just makes no sense. All in all, this was a pretty bad movie. The writing was bad, the acting was basic, the costuming made it seem like everybody was ready to go to Easter dinner. The one saving grace was that they decided to actually film this in Ireland, and that's barely anything. Anyway, that's all that I had. If you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I am trying to get to 8,000 followers, and I would love to be able to achieve that at some point this year. But besides that, make sure that you stay safe and have a fantastic day. Bye.